I love Andor, not only for its artistry and its depth, but for how it addresses many of my concerns as an adult, framed within a fantasy universe that took over my imagination when I was 10 years old. The effect goes far beyond simple nostalgia. It's as if the franchise grew up with me, a comforting notion in our time of relentless change. So, it's appropriate how Andor takes into account how we look back at our own lives, how we search for meaning, how and why we make the choices that we make. Much has been discussed about Andor, Rogue One, and the Star Wars franchise in general as a political allegory, or as modern myth addressing our collective unconscious. But what I find particularly interesting about Andor is how the show addresses the subject of free will. Do we have an independent agency in how we live our lives? Or are we subject to the innumerable factors that direct our lives in a universe where everything is predetermined, including our decisions? The debate is both centuries old and currently trending, with a whole lot of contemporary scientists and philosophers addressing the subject in bestsellers and online. Andor actually demonstrates these ideas quite nicely. Cassian Andor is a thief who decides to join the rebellion against the Galactic Empire as a soldier and a spy. It's a dangerous occupation where decisions carry more weight than they do for the average person.
I made a choice. I made the right choice.
This demonstrates the idea of free will. We are free, autonomous individuals who have complete agency over what we do with our lives. We assess our circumstances and make our own decisions. Headstrong and convinced of his own agency, as most of us are, Cassian eventually comes across a Force healer, and he is both dismissive and disturbed by what she sees.
There's a purpose to it. He's a messenger. There's some place he needs to be.
This interaction occurs late in Season 2 of Andor, and it gently reintroduces a theme central to Star Wars lore, but has been absent from Andor up until this point. The idea of destiny. That your life has a purpose and you are on a journey towards your ultimate, inexorable fate. From its inception, Star Wars has been a story of heroes fulfilling their destinies, of prophecies realized. Does Luke Skywalker have free will? Are all his choices really his own?
You must do what you feel is right, of course.
It sure seems like he's making his own decisions, independent of any external forces. He even chooses not to follow his master's wishes, and instead goes with his gut as he heads out to try and save his friends.
He should stop saving people.
Cassian makes choices like this all the time, against advice, against orders. He eventually decides that he will be quitting the rebellion altogether so he can lead a quiet life with his partner Bix. And he doesn't want to hear any more mumbo-jumbo about destiny.
She called you a messenger. I've had dreams like that.
Why are you doing this?
The thing is, he does have a destiny. We've seen it. That is, if you're like me and watched the film Rogue One before watching Andor. Rogue One was released 6 years before the first season of Andor, while depicting events that occur after Andor. All of which affords the viewer godlike omniscience watching Cassian's life play out. We already know that he will help steal the plans that enable the destruction of the Death Star, and that he will die in the process. Cassian may think that he has free will, but from our vantage point, we know he's hurtling towards his predetermined fate. Determinism sees all events in the universe as a web of interconnected causes and effects, going all the way back to the beginning of the universe. These memes actually help to illustrate how it all works. Tim snitches on Cassian, causing a chain of events leading to the destruction of the Death Star. The security guys on Morlana 1, who harass Cassian, are also part of the same causal web, leading directly to Cassian joining the rebellion. Free will can be seen as an illusion. Cassian thinks he calls the shots concerning his own life, but his every action can be seen as the direct result of a whole range of causes. When Cassian joins the rebellion, it is inevitable. It's been predetermined by his personality, which was shaped by upbringing, memories, trauma, psychological imprinting, all of which interacts with culture, socioeconomic status, and other environmental pressures, not to mention biological factors, brain chemistry, neurology, genetics. Our actions aren't the result of agency. They're the result of nature.
I make my own decisions.
Is that what you've been doing? Sometimes I wonder. You appeared when I needed you.
Luthen's view of life is comparatively deterministic. He actually outlines the causes that will lead him to a foregone conclusion.
I wake up every day to an equation I wrote 15 years ago from which there's only one conclusion. I'm damned for what I do. My anger, my ego, my unwillingness to yield, my eagerness to fight, they set me on a path from which there's no escape.
While many people equate themselves with their ego, emotions, and personality traits, and regard them as components of the self that exercises free will, Luthen understands that they are in fact external causes outside of his control, setting him on an inexorable path. Cyril, on the other hand, appears to believe in his own agency.
There's a future here for those who dare.
Cyril often feels like he's taking the initiative and doing something important. But not only are his decisions subject to the more obvious external forces, bureaucracy, imperial conspiracies, Dedra, EDI, they are also controlled by less obvious factors: his temperament, his ego, his values and beliefs, his emotions. It's worth mentioning here that one major side effect of the deterministic worldview is the elimination of blame. To paraphrase an argument against free will from philosopher Galen Strawson, how can anyone be responsible for anything they do when it's always the direct result of who they are, which is something that no one is ultimately responsible for? Cyril has no free will. His path was determined by more causes than we can count. Same goes for Dedra. Perhaps that's why Andor's villains are viewed so sympathetically by many of the show's fans. Their fates are simply the natural result of cause and effect, playing out the way it must. From this vantage point, morality is ultimately just another external cause. Luthen has just as much blood on his hands as any villain. He just understands the script.
They're gonna find you, Luthen.
You act as if we had a choice.
While Cyril does not. Understandably, plenty of people are uncomfortable with determinism and insist on something called compatibilism, the idea that even in a deterministic universe, human beings still have free will, somehow. As for Cassian, he appears to have finally accepted his place in a deterministic universe by the end of the series. His choice to stay with the rebellion has actually been decided for him by Bix. I suppose he could choose a different path and quit the rebellion and go searching for her, but doing so would require a Star Wars multiverse, so let's not go there. I prefer to believe that Cassian understands that he's playing a role in an excellent screenplay where all its interlocking events have already been plotted out. This is perhaps why Andor is so satisfying to old heads like myself. You reach a certain age, and you can begin to look back on your own life as if it was scripted. Well, despite the fact that it was predetermined that you would watch this video till the end, thank you for watching. And as always, may the Force be with you. And don't forget to like and subscribe.